One of these films looks like a story about talking cats. It is actually a bloody murder mystery involving genetic experiments and a hidden cult. Another shows the bombing of Hiroshima through the eyes of a child. And those are only two of them. We have 6 more disturbing animated movies ahead. You definitely will not find anything like these in the Disney catalog. Let's start with Felidae from 1994, a German animated film directed by Michael Schock. It is a dark and bloody murder mystery set among suburban cats. Francis is a curious house cat who has just moved into a new home. He soon learns that several cats in the area have been brutally killed. His search for an explanation pulls him into a hidden world of old experiments, strange beliefs, and a killer who may be much closer than he thinks. And if the talking cats have somehow made you expect something like the Aristocats, trust me, you could not be more wrong. This is a graphic animated murder mystery with disturbing nightmare sequences and viciously violent deaths. The next film is for dog lovers, although that may only make it harder to watch. Released in 1982, The Plague Dogs was based on the novel by Richard Adams and directed by Martin Rosen. It follows 2 dogs named Ralph and Snitter who escape from an animal testing facility after being subjected to cruel experiments. Once outside, they meet a fox called the Todd, who teaches them how to survive in the wild. But freedom does not make their lives much easier. Food becomes scarce. The dogs are forced to hunt, and their increasingly feral behavior begins to frighten the local population. Before long, rumors that they may be carrying the plague turn them into a public threat, and the authorities begin hunting them. Snitter also suffers from hallucinations caused by brain surgery performed at the facility, and the film occasionally slips from the bleak countryside into strange, disorienting dream sequences. There is no way around it. The Plague Dogs is a painful film to watch, and it may well leave you in tears, but it deserves the attention. We also have to talk about a cult classic. And if, for some reason, you still have not seen Perfect Blue from 1997, that is something you need to fix. The film follows Mima Kirigoe, a Japanese pop idol who leaves her group to pursue an acting career. But the transition quickly becomes a nightmare. A stalker grows obsessed with her. The pressure of her new work begins to close in, and Mima finds herself haunted by the version of herself she thought she had left behind. Perfect Blue is pure psychological horror. It constantly shifts between reality, memory, performance, and hallucination until you feel almost as disoriented as Mima herself. The story pulls you deeper into her paranoia with every scene, making it harder and harder to tell what is real. And since we are already talking about anime, we should move on to Wicked City. The story is set toward the end of the 20th century, when humans and the demons of a parallel world have maintained an uneasy peace for centuries. As their treaty comes up for renewal, a violent faction from the demon world tries to stop it. Taki, a member of the Black Guard, is assigned to protect Giuseppe Maillart, a key figure in renewing the treaty, from demons that cross into the human world, often disguised as ordinary people. Wicked City combines horror and graphic violence with deeply disturbing sexualized body horror. It is also strikingly stylish, with fast, aggressive direction and imagery that can be beautiful and repulsive at the same time. Much of its distinctive look comes from Yoshiaki Kawajiri, who directed the film while also serving as its animation director and character designer. I considered including When the Wind Blows here, and I still strongly recommend it. But I already talked about that film in my list of the most haunting nuclear war movies, where I somehow managed to leave out Barefoot Gen. So let's correct that mistake here. Based on Keiji Nakazawa's manga, the film follows a young boy named Gen, who lives in Hiroshima with his family during the final months of the Second World War. Food is scarce. Other Japanese cities have already been devastated by air raids, and Gen's father fears that Hiroshima has been spared for a reason. On the morning of August 6th, Gen sees a bomber overhead. Then comes the flash. The bombing sequence is an almost uninterrupted nightmare. The lucky ones die instantly, while those who survive the initial blast wander through the ruins with horrifying injuries. It is a heartbreaking film, but also one that everyone should see at least once. Let's move on to Princess, a 2006 animated film from Denmark, directed by Anders Morgenthaler and co-produced by Zentropa, the company founded by Lars von Trier. August Christensen takes custody of his niece Mia after the death of his sister. I have to be careful how I describe what happens next, but trust me, this is one of the darkest stories on this entire list. Living with Mia, August slowly realizes that her early life was shaped by people who should have protected her, and did not. He sets out to punish those he holds responsible, with Mia swept into his crusade. Princess blends animation with live-action footage and strange flashes of fantasy, and closes on a sentimental afterlife scene that borders on parody. None of that softens what the film is really about. It is not an easy watch, but it stays with you. Next up is Mad God from 2021, which on this channel practically counts as a new release, although Phil Tippett had already been working on it on and off for more than 30 years by then. Made primarily with stop-motion animation, Mad God contains almost no dialogue. Instead, the film follows a masked figure known as the Assassin as he descends through a ruined world filled with monsters, factories, experiments, and endless cycles of violence. Nearly everything in this world seems to exist only to suffer, be crushed, dissected, or replaced by something even worse. Mad God is packed with tiny visual details, but it does very little to explain its world or guide the viewer through it. The result can be hypnotic, grotesque, and deeply confusing, often all at once. This is not an easy or conventionally entertaining film. It feels closer to an elaborate piece of visual art than a traditional story, and there is a real chance it will leave you completely cold. But even if Phil Tippett's vision is not for you, Mad God is difficult to forget once you have seen it. For our final film, we are heading to Czechoslovakia and the work of Karel Zeman. Based on a novel by German writer Ottfried Preussler, The Sorcerer's Apprentice follows Krabat, an orphan wandering through the winter countryside. A talking crow directs him to a mysterious mill, where Krabat is taken in by the master and joins 11 other boys. He soon discovers that the master is a sorcerer who keeps the boys as his prisoners while teaching them black magic. Krabat is initially fascinated by what he learns, but the master is cruel, and when Krabat falls in love with a girl from a nearby village, he finally begins to resist him. The animation often relies on static backgrounds and very restrained movement, sometimes with only one element moving within the frame. But I do not see that as a weakness. If anything, it only makes the film feel even more like a dark nightmare.